Okay, we'll get started. So today is Docker and Kubernetes. That won't be visible. Okay, guys. Hope I'm audible. Okay. Okay. So this Docker and Kubernetes is not a comprehensive session because it takes, as you know, there is uh, uh, another session. I mean, training session as well, but it takes minimum. I would say if you need to work on any production environment specific things in a complex application development, at least you need 60-70 hours of learning. And if somebody is explaining in uh, 30 hours or something, that means you are not learning as per the production environment setup, because there will be n number of things. So because your application development contains databases, third party libraries, and networking stuff, and integration with Facebook, etc., the banking. There are n number of things. There will be security issues, there will be compliance requirements, networking requirements, and along with your build and deployments. Okay. So but what I'm going to do here, because this is also because when you're working with microservices development, of course not everyone is going with the Docker now, because people are not still comfortable with this one. Only the techie clients like Microsoft, Google, etc., they are using it because they are the founders, they use it. But other companies, they are slowly moving, means for the small, I mean low complex applications, they are taking it. Probably they might be having one or two pages, one or two web services, they are moving, they are doing the experimentation, if I have to say. So I just would like to cover these fundamentals of Docker and Kubernetes, so that you will know what you need to learn uh, to get expertise in Docker and Kubernetes, and what you need to learn, how you need to work, and what are all the different scenarios that you will use this Docker and Kubernetes. So what's your development environment, production environment? Let us say if it is a Java .NET, you know that you have to use a Visual Studio or Eclipse and to do the development. And you have to use the Jenkins or Azure DevOps to do the CI/CD, and Selenium, etc. Okay, but Docker is a little new, right? So what are the different things that are similar to your regular application development? Okay, so that's what I'm going to cover in all these things. First, you need to understand what is a Docker. Okay, can you're switching off? Okay. So if you are doing application development, right, how do you do build and deployments? You are creating a project. Can you stop that? I don't mind. You can switch on the AC. It is not. Okay. So if you are doing a regular application development, what you are doing, you are creating a .NET project, and then you are creating a build pipeline. You will get the artifacts, which can be a combination of your HTML files, your DLLs, etc. And finally you deploy that to different servers, right? So it can be your virtual machines, it can be PaaS service, anything. Of course we will show one PaaS service as well. Okay. But what is a Docker? So Docker is here to mitigate some issues. That means uh, as if you remember, I was explaining infrastructure as code. Why do you need infrastructure as code? Because if you're having hundreds of servers, and then you will recruit some 10-15 people to do the machine creation and the network creation, and everything is connected, storage, etc. And when 10 developer 10 infra guys are working on this kind of development, everybody use their own standard. Okay, let us say I say, as an architect, as an infra architect, I would say, hey, create a Windows Server 2016 virtual machine for this development environment. Since some 50 servers have to be created, your work is being assigned to different people. You have three infra guys. those 3 infra guys probably take, okay, I'll create 30 machines, you will create 30 machines. Since there is no template, of course, I given the guidance as an architect in an email, but there is no guarantee that you will follow. Let us say while you are creating Nest, while you are using Nest, or when you are doing something, instead of 8 GB, you may select 16 GB RAM. And one infra guy might have updated your operating system with some service pack 1. Some other infra guy might use service pack 2. So like this, there might be differences. Not there might be, definitely there will be differences, because different people are working on the same work, but their configuration may change. So because of these things, what happens? My application may work in one server and may not work in another server, because let us say you install some IIS 7 in one machine. I started working on that for my development purpose. When I moved that code to QA, you only created that virtual machine for the QA environment as well. But probably you install a different OS, or you install different version of IIS. So then what happens? My application may not work on that one. To avoid these issues, infrastructure as a code has come into picture. Like you can use ARM templates, you can use Ansible, Chef, Puppet. These are all the different tools that are available to make your environments consistent. Okay, that's the criteria behind the infrastructure as a code. Now, Docker is another level. So now you said, hey, I'm using infrastructure as a code for automation, and all my operating systems are similar across all the machines, be it a dev or be it PA or be it production. Still, people are coming and saying that they are coming with some issues. Still, they say, hey, my application is not working in the queue environment. Now you will argue that no, all the machines are with the same configuration, with the same ways and everything. Then why it is not working? The problem, over a period of time, in the first instance, you created the virtual machine with the same configuration. Over a period of time, people are doing some changes to the environments, right? Let us say the developer may make changes to his IIS, or the server administrator may make some changes to some OS. It can be security things, or it can be any other thing. It is possible, right? Because of these things, your application may not work in different environments, though the same code, the same operating system, etc. Now, how do you avoid that? Docker. So Docker is something which runs on top of your operating system. Okay, right now you have the, so I will explain in detail. So when you use a Docker, right, Docker is a container where everything is inside. It doesn't worry what operating system it is running upon. So that's why Docker. So when you create a Docker image for your code, it will work on any server which is having Docker installed. So let's remember for this time being. Okay, the benefits, as I said, you develop your code once and create a Docker image. It will run anywhere, be it a Linux system, be it uh, let us say you have a QA servers, 10 QA servers. One QA server might be having some Windows Server 2016 Service Pack 1, other might be having Service Pack 2. It doesn't matter for your Docker image, it will work, because your Docker image is having some foundation between your operating system and your Docker image. Okay, you don't need to worry about that one. How it is developed? It is a software, piece of software that we install. It is being taken care by the Docker engine. Okay, so to use your Docker images for your application build and deployments, you need to know a couple of things. The way you need to know, let us say, if you want to deploy a regular application deployment, you need to know, let us say, you need to have a .NET projects or Java projects, and then you compile it, then you will get DLLs, etc. You will get CSS files, HTML files, and you may get EXEs, MSAs, etc. These are all the things you know. And also you know that you need to make some environment related configuration to web.config. Let us say you change SQL Server connection or Oracle connection or API keys or values. In the same way, you need to know the fundamentals of Docker as well in order to work on that one. Okay, what are those? So if you are using Docker for your application build and deployments, you need to know a couple of things. They are image, Docker image. Docker image is nothing but your DLL. Okay, if you directly use DLL, it will not work, right? You need to deploy to some IaaS. Then you will get one URL. From there, you can use the application. That means DLL is not in the working app. See, don't take my statement as it is. I'm just giving it an example. But when you deploy it, you will be able to use it, use the application. In the same way, image is your uh, uh, copy of your code in some form, but you cannot use it directly to access your application. You need to create a container. Means from the Docker image, you will create a container. That container is what having your working application. That means it can be your website, it can be your API. That's what your container. Container is a running version of your image. Okay. And then engine. Engine is nothing but, let us say you are having a .NET framework to run your applications. In the same way, you need to have the Docker engine to run your Docker containers. And then container registry. You need to know this one as well. So where you are keeping your source code, it can be Git like on Azure repos, it can be Bitbucket, it can be TFS, it can be anything. Okay, this is to keep your regular source code. But where do you keep your Docker images? So you will keep them in a special container called container registry. So this is equivalent to your SCM. Source control management contains your code, and container registries contains your images. Okay, because the systems work differently. So you will keep all your images. You will create the image from your code, and you will keep those images in your container registry. It contains all this versioning and everything. That way you are having the SCM. And then finally, you will be having the control plane. This is nothing but I will talk about what is this. Let us say you deployed your applications to virtual machines, and how you are managing your applications using IaaS, right? You will make some changes like virtual directories or applications, websites. And let us say you are using your build and deployments. You are using Azure DevOps Portal, or you are using Jenkins. Why you are using? Because this is easy to use. You will go to the portal, access web application, make changes, everything is visible. But if you have to do the same thing from the command line, then it is a hell, right? So your Azure DevOps portal is a orchestrator for your build and deployments. In the same way, you need an orchestrator for your Docker containers as well. Means the way you deploy, the way you manage, because you may need to delete some older versions, you may need to add more containers, the way you add more virtual servers to your load balancer. So you need an orchestrator which manages your containers as well. So that also you need to know. That's a control plane. So that is basically your Kubernetes. So we will talk about this. So in a nutshell, you need to know image, how to create image, how to create a container, how to deploy on the Docker engine, and then where do you keep your images, container registry, and then orchestrator. If you know all these things, then you are good. Okay, this is how the Docker evolved, right? Initially, this is how you are having Linux machines, Docker machines, sorry, Windows machines, Mac machines, and it can be on the data center, it can be on the cloud, right? So this is how, and the your Docker images or Docker engine is available on all the machines. You can deploy on the Linux, Windows, or Mac. Okay, but of course, the Docker is developed on the Linux platform. It is having more support for Linux and less support for the Windows. So you need to be, I mean, not you basically, the application architect or the solution architect need to be careful if their application features or the underlying frameworks are compatible with the Windows containers or not. So they have to be careful. Okay. Okay. So let's remain, because of course you are learning the latest one, but you also need to know the history as well. Generally, you will make a better judgment, because I will tell you why you should know in the coming slides. So how it started? Initially, you are having the physical servers. I mean, let us say back in 2 decades ago, we have the physical servers, and then on top of that, you have the OS install, and then VMware and all these things came up. You have the virtual machine, and finally, virtual machines. It can be on the VMware, or it can be Azure cloud, or it can be on the AWS cloud, or it can be GCP. And finally, the containerization is nothing but your Docker. So this is the journey how your application deployments are changed from physical server to virtual machine to the containerization. Obviously, everything is on some physical server under, but you are abstracted. That means you don't know the underlying hardware. You only know what you are using as of now. Okay. So now you know the journey of application developments, how they've been deployed on the infrastructure. Now you see this is how it works, right? Legacy application environment, how it looks like. You will have a server, hardware infrastructure, and then you have a operating system on the hardware like Windows, Linux. On top of that, you have the IaaS, and then you deploy your applications. It have its dependencies and etc. And then you see what is the difference between your virtual machines and kernel. You should know this one because though some other person is taking decision whether they will deploy their application to the virtual machines or means some servers or the containers, you also need to know the differences so that you will be in a better position to give an advice as well. Okay. So if it is a if you are deploying your application on the virtual environment, it looks like this, right? You have your physical server, on top of that install the operating system, on top of that you have the hypervisor. This is a piece of software, and then you have the virtual machines. Your virtual machines contains all your IaaS or Apache Tomcat, and then your applications, and then so your virtual machine is having a guest operating system. Guys, don't worry if you don't know. This is a cloud concept, but I'm just giving the overview how it looks like. You will be comfortable. Okay. So your physical operating system, sorry, your physical machine may contain a Linux operating system, but on top of that you will install hypervisor. On top of that you can create the Windows virtual machine or Linux or Mac, because there is a hypervisor between your operating system and the guest operating system. Guest operating system is nothing but the operating system in your virtual machine. Okay. The physical server, whatever it contains, is the host operating system. Okay, there is a difference: host operating system and the guest operating system. So this is how your virtualized application environment looks like. Okay, you have different virtual machines, so you will go and deploy your applications, but there is no difference the way you see between physical server and the virtual server. This difference is only for the infrastructure guys, because they will go and create the environments. Now, if it is a containerization, how it looks like? Of course, you will have the hardware there as well, and then you have the operating system. Here, of course, underlying there might be a hypervisor, but you will not see them. Okay, here it is a Docker engine for you as a DevOps engineer or as an application developer. On top of that, you are having your containers. Now, your containers contains your all your required things for your application build and deployments. Okay, it's a completely working application. So your application dependencies and libraries, etc. So you can see the difference. Your container doesn't contain any guest operating system. That's the one you need to understand. Okay. Okay. So, but in reality, what happens? Your environment, right? Be it a dev environment, Q environment, production environment. It's a mix of everything, because some applications might be running on physical servers, some might be running on the virtual servers. It can be virtual machine from VMware and your data center, or the virtual machine from the Azure cloud or AWS cloud. This is the real-time environments, and it can be the Docker containers as well, right? As I said, some components can be on the virtual machines, some components can be on the containers, and some can be directly on the physical servers. Okay. Now let's see how these containerized applications or services looks like. So if I take it as a standalone, this is representing your Docker images and your Docker engine. So you have your hardware, we already seen it. You have your operating system, we've seen it, and you have the Docker. On top of Docker, you will have the n number of containers like application A, application B, application C, application D. Likewise, application N. So basically, if it is a regular, you may have these things on the IaaS rather than the Docker. Your IaaS contain your web applications or any websites or services. So what are the benefits? The benefits are your containers are lightweight. Okay, that means if you need to have a virtual, let us say you need to deploy some application. First, you need to have the virtual machine. Okay, and that virtual machine contains some operating system, and then you install IAS, etc. How much time it takes? Generally, if I'm creating from the portal, then it may take at least some 20 minutes, including our manual. Let us say it is automated. It takes at least 10 minutes because the only difference is navigation, right? If it is automation, you simply click it and forget. But if it is a manual, you go on and navigate. That's the only difference. Rest everything will be same. If it is a physical server, it takes 2-3 months because first you need to buy the server and then keep it in the data center and then do all the cabling and wiring and everything. It takes 2-3 months minimum. But if it is a containers, it's a matter of minutes. Why I'm saying? Let us say you are working in a production environment. You have your load balancer. Load balancer is having 2 virtual machines behind. If I have to spin another virtual machine, it takes minimum 3 to 5 minutes. Though you are working on a high-end environment, still it takes minimum 3-4 minutes. There is no doubt on that. But if you're working on mission critical applications like e-commerce, like AWS or Google, etc., they can't afford it. 3 to 4 minutes is a big time difference for them. Their applications will be down. So that's where they use these containers. When you use a container, this container runs behind the load balancer. Okay, it's not a regular load balancer; it's a different load balancer. But if you want to increase your container, let us say right now you are having 10 containers. Nothing but you have 10 virtual machines in regular. You have 10 containers. If you want to increase another container as per the load, it's a matter of seconds, not even seconds, milliseconds, I would say, based on the size of your servers. So that's why it is fast. And also, if something goes wrong in your container, because all the containers running on some virtual machine are a physical server, right? If something happens to some of your containers is hacked, it doesn't affect another container. So security wise also, it is a good thing. Okay. So these are the different benefits. And there is a word called standard. Right? Why standard? Whoever is creating the Docker image uh, from any company or any developer, this is standardized. So the process of creating a Docker image or container, the mechanics behind the Docker image or container, everything is same irrespective of the company or the developer is doing. So this is a standard. So it is, I mean, you will not get into multiple issues. Okay, in terms of documentation or maintenance or issue troubleshooting, etc. Okay, these are all the benefits. Okay. Now container registry. As I told you, you keep your code, regular code in source control management system. There are a number of source control management systems like a Git, Bitbucket, TFS, Serena Dimensions, Acuro, Perforce. There are tons of Subversion, etc. In the same way, you keep your, as I told you, you keep your images in the container registry. This is a source control management for your containers. Okay. Of course, here also we have a number of vendors for the container registries. First one is the Docker Hub because Docker is created by Docker Hub company. Obviously, they also have everything. Docker Hub container registry, and you have from AWS as well. Let us say if you want to deploy your applications or images to AWS, let's keep it in the AWS. Why do you want to keep it in some other? But there is no restriction on what container registry you should use because let us say I'm using Azure DevOps for my application build and deployments. I don't need to use Azure DevOps, right? I can use a Bitbucket as well. I can use some other Git third-party Git as well. So in the same way, you should not have any restriction on where to keep your images or containers. So you can use any vendor. There is no difference, but the time lag will be there. If everything is on the Azure, if you are using Azure machines, then the time it takes to retrieve that image might be nanoseconds. If it is from the other vendor, your internet bandwidth depends on the internet bandwidth and response and everything. That's the only difference. Okay. So you have AWS ECS container service and you have the Azure as well. So, and I'll be using Azure because I'm going to use AKS for my Docker container deployment. So I use AKS, but there is no restriction. And finally, now you know that you need to create an image, you need to create a container and keep it in some container registry for the future purpose for the build and deployments. You can retrieve from there. And as I told you, you also need to know the container orchestrator. So why do you need it? To manage your containers. Let us say right now I have my website running on the production environment. It is running from 4 containers. Okay, if it is not container, let us say it is 4 virtual machines in our regular time. Since we are using Docker terminology, let's use it is running from 4 containers. The load is increased on the server. Now my 4 containers is not able to serve the user request. The user's requests are in the queue. That means I need to increase my capacity. That means I need to add another container. How do you do it? People say I'll do it from the command line. So how do you know that when the load will be increased? You don't know, right? If somebody has to tell you, or you need to keep monitoring your monitor for seeing the performance of your application. Then accordingly you will increase. But how do you know that how many containers to be additionally added? You don't know, right? You may need to create 2 containers or 3 containers based on the user load. You don't know all those things. If you have to do manually, then you need to do the analysis. By the time you start the analysis, the website will be done. Because it takes minutes and hours, right? Not minutes. Generally takes hours and hours. That's where these orchestrators comes into picture. It takes care of the management of your container management. Okay, when to scale up means when to increase, when to scale down, or when to delete the older copies of your containers. So something goes wrong in terms of security, or your container is unhealthy. Nothing but your let us say your virtual machine is unhealthy. What happens? Some server administrator will log in and see what went wrong to the server. If it is a container, we can't do that one. That's where you need to have these tools. So these tools will take care of all these areas. So one such is the famous is Kubernetes. So for orchestrating your deployments or management or maintenance or anything related to your containers will be taken care by your orchestrator. Of course, without the orchestrator, you can run the applications in the Docker. It's like running your applications in the production environment without a load balancer or without any UI to manage your stuff, which is very difficult. There are many orchestrator platforms. One such is Docker Swarm. Unfortunately, though it is from the Docker Hub itself, Docker Swarm is not that famous because it is lacking some features. Because their concentration is not on the Docker Swarm. Okay. Otherwise, they are the founders. They can do anything. Okay. And the other one is Mesosphere DCOS. This is another orchestrator. Few people use it. And the most famous is Kubernetes because it is from Google and the documentation is huge and the features is rich when compared to others. Okay, so I'm not mentioning all those differences here, but I would say Kubernetes is the mostly wise tool and the most stable platform in content. I mean orchestrator. Okay, and there are many others as well. I think there are another 10 to 15 orchestrators. Even people don't know about them. If you go to the Wikipedia, you can check all of them, but you don't even get on the right from the Google itself. Go to the Wikipedia and see. Okay, now we know if you want to work on the Dockers, you need to know how to create Docker image container, and you need to know the orchestrators, and then container registry. These are the things that you need to know. Okay, at the same time, if you want to use orchestrator, you also need to know some basics about orchestrator, right? So as I told you, Kubernetes is one of the orchestrators for your Docker. So what it does, you can see automated build and deployments, automated scaling like up or down, and then killing the unhealthy containers or creating the new containers or making some security changes, whatever it is, or anything related to your container management is from the Kubernetes orchestrator. So if you're working in the real time, people call it K8 as well. K8 means Kubernetes only. It is not a different one. It's just a synonym. So these are the features we are talking about from the content, from the Kubernetes orchestrator itself. You can add the storage to the content, because of course every container virtual machine needs a storage. I would say all the infrastructure elements are required for your Docker as well. Okay, without that it will not work. So that means storage, and then your load balancing. Self-healing means it knows how to kill the containers if something goes wrong, how to recreate, and then your configuration related information. Okay, like it can be server configuration, it can be application configuration, and then service topology is nothing but, if you are working in a regular cloud environment, your topology is nothing but how your servers are categorized under virtual networks or VLANs or subnets or etc. Right? In the same way, you call it as a service topology on the Docker areas. So those are the features of Kubernetes. Of course, it has to be the features of any orchestrator. Okay. Okay. So why do you? Okay. We are deploying our application to the machines, right? Sometimes we deploy our application to our physical servers, which is in our data center, and I can run from my application from my laptop as well. Okay, and I can run it from the virtual machine. I can run it from the container. So there are n number of ways to run your applications. Okay, in the same way, we have the orchestrators, and there are n number of orchestrators as well. Okay, but the n number of orchestrators, right? Like your Mesosphere, and then Docker Swarm, and then Kubernetes. Okay, and you can run them. You can install them on your physical machine as well, on the virtual machine as well, and as well as in some container as well. Orchestrated from the container as well. Okay, these are n number of ways that you use your orchestrator. But again, before I explain this one, I will explain the next slide, because I'm talking about how do you choose different, there are different Kubernetes flavors. How do you choose which one is better for you? Okay, of course, this will be the decision taken care by the infrastructure architect and as well as the solution architect, not a DevOps engineer or not a DevOps architect also. Okay, so to work on the Dockers, you need to have the dev environment as well, right? Okay, so you can use a Docker desktop if you are using Windows 10 laptop. If you are using Windows 8 or something, you need to use a what I mean Docker. I mean, there is called a virtual box. It's a little hectic. You need to install the virtual box and need to enable a hypervisor from your laptops, and then you have to go and install your Docker stuff. It takes some time. But if it is a Docker for Windows, it's just one click. Okay, so and use your regular Visual Studio to do the development. I will show you how to create a Docker file for your I mean, to create a Docker image, you need a Docker file. We will talk about it. But for the development environment, you need to install Docker for Windows on your local laptop to use with the Visual Studio. In the production environment options, we have n number of production environment options. One is managed version of Kubernetes. So managed version of Kubernetes means, if you see under managed, I have this box. Three of them are in thick blue, and application and minimal cluster application. The top and bottom are in a different color. Okay, light blue color, right? That means when I'm using managed version of Kubernetes, I need to worry about only my application configuration and deployment and some minimal cluster operations. I'll just give you an example. Let us say for our DevOps, if you are using Jenkins, what you have to do? First, you need to have the server. You need to install your operating systems, and then install the Jenkins and do all the connectivities between Jenkins and repositories, Jenkins and your Azure boards, etc. So you need to do all this stuff. That means end to end, you are the owner. Installing the operating system, installing the software Jenkins, and installing other application build and deployments. But if you are using Azure DevOps, what's the difference? Everything is ready. You are just going and pushing your code to the Azure repos or creating your work items and then creating the build and deployments. I mean, release pipeline and build pipelines. But you are not installing, set up any server. You are not installing any piece of software. Everything is ready. In the same way, in the Kubernetes as well, you have these different options. You can install Kubernetes, you can use Kubernetes from different vendors like Azure or AWS or GCP, Google Cloud Provider. If you are using the managed version from them, then you are responsible only for your application, I mean, your Docker build and deployments. You don't care about underlying infrastructure, how it is being created, how the nodes are, I mean, your underlying containers are being created. Everything is taken care by them. Okay. Other one is on-premise. On-premise is nothing but if I'm comparing your Azure DevOps with Jenkins, this is equivalent to your Jenkins. That means for using on-premise Kubernetes, that means you need to set up the servers. You need to install your Kubernetes machine on the Kubernetes, Kubernetes on the some machine, and then it is called master slave mode. It's a hectic. And you need to have the slave nodes like machines, virtual machines, or physical servers. You need to again install slave agents on them. You need to install Docker, and then finally you will go and deploy your applications that are in the Docker container. That means everything you are responsible. Only thing that will come up with your on-premise stuff is control. When you install it, it will give one web page. That's what you don't do. Rest everything has to be taken care by you. That means again it's a months and months effort. It's not a week's effort. And then turnkey cloud, there is another option. That means so there is only one difference. If you see on-premise and turnkey cloud, you see that thick blue, right? The cluster infrastructure. When you are using turnkey cloud providers, there are providers who gives this Kubernetes. They manage the entire infrastructure in terms of how many servers required, etc. Rest everything you need to do. They just give the infrastructure, you just go and install your Kubernetes, etc. Because there are many companies who can't afford buying a hardware. For such kind of people, this is the option. Okay. And another one is custom. Custom means you are the owner. You purchase your hardware, software, and installation, configuration. Everything is one for you. And this requires a huge skill set along with your infrastructure skills, Kubernetes skills, and development skills. So these are the different flavors of Kubernetes for the production environment purposes. Under this, we are going to use managed version of Kubernetes. So let's see what are those managed version of Kubernetes. One such is AKS. AKS is nothing but Azure Kubernetes Service. That means that Kubernetes running on the Azure cloud, and it is being managed by Azure Microsoft. So what is it? So it is a hosted Kubernetes environment. Means this is being managed by Azure cloud. You just need to go and create your instance. Okay. And it has all that features. Whatever is regular Kubernetes having, like self-healing, creation of new containers, etc., deletion, etc. And it has a built-in container registry, and it is integrated with your Azure DevOps. Okay. Now with the introduction of your AKS, building images and creating the container from the image and deploy them to the AKS Kubernetes is simple. Okay, let us say I was using on-premise Kubernetes 1.5 years ago. So I took almost 2 weeks to set up Kubernetes, dev Kubernetes on my laptop. It took almost 3 weeks because I had to learn everything, how to enable the hypervisors. First, I need to understand why my Kubernetes is not getting installed. The reason hypervisor is not there. And after that, virtual boxes. And if I go and ask infrastructure guys, they don't know because they never worked on it. So instead of asking the infra guy, I had to do my work. It took 3 weeks. Now it's only 5 minutes to set up Kubernetes on my development piece. That is just a Docker for Windows. Okay. With the introduction of the latest version, keep going the latest version so that your productivity will be increased. Okay, so you can easily create images and containers using AKS. And good thing is AKS is free. That means you will go and create a AKS cluster, right? It is free. Of course, the underlying nodes like virtual machines, right? For that they will charge. So like the way cluster is, let us say I'm using Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is free, but it is running some machines. They are charged. So at least you can try. Okay. So those are the basics about your Docker and Kubernetes. You need to know all these different things to work on the Docker and Kubernetes. Okay. Now the next thing is we will talk about these different Dockers commands and what is Docker file, etc. First, let's go ahead and install the Docker on my laptop for the development, because always it starts with development, right? So in this session, I just want to install, okay, Docker on my laptop. It's a very easy to install. Let's go and search for. I don't remember any website. I always do Google only. Docker for Windows 10. Because mine, of course, most of the people are using now Windows 10. So you can see docs. You can directly go and click on anything. Of course, it will come. The website is docker.com. So you can see here. Uh, I don't download from the Docker Hub. I can directly download somewhere here. It will be there. Install Docker Desktop on Windows. Okay. Where is my installer? Do you see the installer link here? I don't waste my time. Okay. The installer. Install Docker Toolbox, not the Docker Toolbox. Install. Let me go here and okay, let's click on this community version, because so again Docker also containing the way your Visual Studio is a community version is free. You have the enterprise version, etc. For that you need to pay, because that contains some other versions. In the same way, your Docker is also having different versions. One is community, where it is free. If you are working on, if you are deploying this Docker and production servers, of course you need to go with the enterprise, which is a licensed version. Now there is my Docker here. Oh yeah, whenever we need it, it won't come easily. Okay, download Docker engine. Okay, so let it come. Mine is Windows. Let's select the operating system Windows here. Okay, Docker desktop for Windows. This is what you need to install. Let's go and okay, get Docker here. Don't click on it. Okay, it may take this is a 914 MB. I think my operating, yeah, it's a 914 MB. I think I think our internet is very slow. Basically, on my laptop at home, it hardly has seconds to download it. Okay, guys. So you have to download this Docker desktop for Windows. Once you run it, you will get a Docker desktop icon now here. Okay, we will see it. So let it continue. So while it is continuing, let's see because I will stop it here for today. I will just give us some introduction for tomorrow, so that I will install that Docker because it requires a restart, I guess. Okay, I will install. Anyways, I downloaded this Docker for desktop. I will install it and I will restart. Otherwise, it takes another 10 minutes for me tomorrow. Okay, once we do that.
1 second. I think
Yes.
while installing the Dockers, right, we need to apply some patches. I mean, some patch rules are available, right? I don't. Did you install it in your machine?
Patches? What patches?
No. When we are installing that latest version of Docker on Windows 10, right? In the guidelines
Okay.
document, I think they have suggested some few guidelines. Some
Okay.
settings might
So,
be required.
okay.
If you do that,
Let me tell you like this. When you install this Windows 10, right? Basically, the prerequisites here is your laptop or operating system should have the hypervisor enabled. Okay, that's the prerequisite. Why I am not telling this one? Because all Windows 10 machines by default hypervisor is enabled. Okay, if it is a Windows 10 operating system on your laptop, hypervisor is not enabled. You need to ask your if you are using your company laptop, you have to ask your server. I mean your infrastructure guy. They will go and enable it because you will not have the administrator access. But if you are using Windows 10 by default, hypervisor is enabled. And if it is not enabled, it will clearly tell you hypervisor is not enabled. Okay.
Okay.
That's the only one. Okay. So now, so these are the things that we're going to see tomorrow, how to create a Docker file. Okay. I'm not getting into the Docker Compose, but I will explain the Docker Compose because as I told you, it takes months and months. So I will explain, I will show you how to create a Docker file for a simple application. And then Docker Compose is for the complex. I will explain that one. Okay. I will explain some commands, and then I will explain the in-depth things of your Docker file because if you are working the way we learn the PowerShell script, right? We learned variable declaration, we learned loops and then conditions, and then only we finally went into the script creation. If you don't know basics, you cannot do it. Of course, you can download from the Google, but you cannot do it on your own. At the same time, I will explain how to create a Docker file and what are the different commands or different items that you should know to create a Docker file. Once you know it, it doesn't matter whether it is a Java application or .NET application. You know the basics. You will go and create a Docker file. Okay. I will show them tomorrow. So guys, that's it from me for today because I don't want to make it more complicated. So tomorrow also when I'm working with this Docker image for the application, again I will be talking about these things. Means I will be repeating. Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
So this is the only.
Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Purna. This is Shiv. This is Manoj.
Yeah, Manoj, tell me.
So yesterday I have shared my screenshots and error messages also
Manoj,
to your
I will
mail
talk
ID.
it offline. This is a recording session. We'll talk it offline.
Okay.
So,
Any questions about this session?
Purna, I have one question related to the Dockers. What kind of challenges will be facing as a DevOps engineer? What we need to take care of that?
Okay. Okay. So, okay, as I told you, this session is not a comprehensive because it is another training session which is around 60 to 70 hours. But the challenges, if you have to tell you, right, it is mostly about the application architecture. Okay, but you are not dealing with that one because if you are working on a complex application development, product development, your application may contain a number of projects, right now in our Visual Studio we contain one front-end project and one API project and some unit test project, right? But in the same way there will be a number of API projects and a number of front-end applications. It can be n number, it can be 20, 30 as well. Okay, now the architect of that application or the lead, somebody has to explain you what is the dependency. Okay, how the different applications are talking together. Let us say I have to deploy my application to the Docker environment. Okay, then I need to know, okay, this application contains one front end, that is a MVC application, and then it requires a .NET framework, etc., IIS, etc. And also it might be using some SQL Server or Oracle. You also need to understand whether they ask you to use the container for the database as well, or they can go ahead with the regular database. These are all the things you need to understand first. The second thing is they might be using some some file systems on the servers, and you need to know how to access your file system from the containers, and they might be running some scripts, and they might be having some load balancers, etc., etc. So whatever you are doing in the regular virtual machines or the physical servers, you have to do it on the Dockers as well. Okay, I would say physical servers is the superset, and virtual machines is similar to your physical servers, but it is lightweight. And your Dockers is again similar to your physical machines or virtual machines, but it is super lightweight. But everything is running on the physical servers.
We have any kind of dashboards for it, like how to monitor the environments and how the deployments are happening?
Yes,
Same
yes,
way,
yes.
like
That's why you are having the orchestrator, Kubernetes. Kubernetes is for that purpose. Okay.
more once you show us, then we can understand more on that.
Exactly, exactly. That's why I'm just going step by step. Okay. Tomorrow, tonight I'll be installing this Docker desktop because it requires a restart. Okay. It contains everything, and then we will show. I will show you that deploying this Docker image from the Visual Studio and from the Azure pipeline, because we will be using the Azure pipelines, and then we can access the Azure Kubernetes dashboard as well, where you can see all these containers, etc.
Kumar, sorry, yeah, Purna, I have one last question, like whether we need to do any kind of configuration, like network configurations or security part things in this Kubernetes also, because
Yeah,
since
as
it
I
was
told
an
you.
external thing we are bringing other than
Yeah.
Azure, right?
Okay. As I told you, if you are using managed version like AKS, okay, this is similar to how do you configure your virtual networks on the Azure cloud. But if you are using your on-premise version, means your regular Kubernetes on your server, then you need to do all the things like storage configuration, network configuration, antivirus, anti-SIEM, all these configurations to be done if you are doing on your own server. But if you are using managed version like AKS on Azure cloud, EKS on AWS, and Kubernetes on the GCP, then it will be taken care by them, but you need to give an attention. How do you configure? But it's super easy.
So we need to follow what the architect has given the instructions, like what kind of
Exactly.
okay.
As
So
I
we
told
need to
you,
just follow that one. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This is the combined effort from the application architect or solution architect along with the infrastructure architect. Both the people are involved.
So once everything was done, we need to bring the application inside the containers,
Exactly.
and we need to say, okay.
Exactly, exactly. Because the design and architecture is very important for your Docker environment. The way architecture and design is important for your application development, in the same way, design and architecture is very important for your Docker environment. Otherwise, applications will fail.
Thank you.
Purna, as part of our session, do we get, I mean, like, can I expect any load balancer setup with the two virtual machines? Something like that?
On the Azure cloud,
Whatever, anything, just to
that's
understand.
Ashok, that is a Azure cloud related. So whatever
Okay.
is required for our sessions, I explain it. But of course, I can guide you. But this is see anything on the cloud, right? It's a straightforward. The way I
Right.
created a virtual machine, in the same way you can go to the Azure cloud, search for Azure load balancer, go and
Okay.
just create an instance. Right click, sorry, next, and then you will add your virtual machines. It will. It
Okay.
is a wizard based on the Azure cloud or AWS cloud.
Okay. Okay, no problem. I'll give it a try.
Yeah. The reason I don't show many of this because people get confused. What's
No,
the
no, even at the end
responsibility
of
of
the
DevOps
session.
engineer or something? Okay.
No,
Otherwise,
what I'm
it's
asking is,
another 5 minutes for me, not more than.
no, no, at the end of the classes, at least. I mean, once we are done with the course, right? At the end of the last day or whatever.
Yeah, we have
which is
another 2
possible.
classes. Okay, 2 classes.
Okay. Okay. No, what I'm asking is, even on the last day also, it's fine for me.
Sure. Okay, guys, I have to catch up with the other thing.
Okay.
Have a good day.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
catch up tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.